So for the changing of fields, I just tried to like one, I just needed a job and I wanted much straight out of law school, right? I was like, whatever I gotta do. But I was lucky enough to be in fields where I got courtroom experience, right? Like from the time I was doing my internships, I was in jury trials when I was still in law school. And I like the certified legal intern programs and trying substantive motions, not chasing people down to get work and do it. So when I had to transition into like civil litigation, it was a litigation firm, and I had a caseload of 500, and I was trying cases all the time. So I was able to find something that spoke to like my interest at least, even though I could not do civil for the rest of my life, and then for my firm. And then your first question was the transition from like work in law school to actual career. And for me, it was actually easy because I worked 50, 60 hours during law school. I went to my dean and was like, I'm not signing this 20-hour contract because I got to pay my bills. And so that was something that I let them know I was going to do and why, just for the sake of surviving life. And I felt that like it helped me build time management skills that were really necessary for being a lawyer, like managing your calendar, managing your appointments, responding to clients, not getting in trouble with the bar for failure to communicate, like staying on top of all the things that you have to do. So it was not a difficult transition because I've just been working since I was 14.
I actually have a couple of points to make too. So with the first question, like the transition from law school to work, in retrospect, I would say to see your first couple of years as a continuation of what you're doing now. Because so many people, they feel like, okay, I finished law school, now I got a job, now I'm making big money or not, or whatever. But, we're all good. But those first couple of years, especially, it's like whatever you're doing, if you throw yourself into it to really understand what's going on, you're continuing to build this foundation of your legal knowledge, and you'll be able to take those skills, whatever they are, and wherever you're learning them, and apply them to the next thing. And actually, so speaking to your next question about transitioning, I think the important thing is, and I didn't really see it this way. It's like, if only I could get a job doing X, Y, or Z. But what the people who are looking at when they're deciding whether to give you that job is, demonstrated interest. So if you want to be an estate planner and you show up to the job and the person says, great, show me some stuff you've done. And you're like, well, I actually haven't done anything. Then it's just as likely that you want to be an immigration attorney. And you're just trying to kind of bamboozle them into hiring you when you have no intention of staying. But if you do a lot of like CLEs and really get to know the practice area to show that that's what you want to do, then you become a lot more attractive to any employer, or you can even go out and
Uh, oh, I was just going to say, I don't know how many of you enjoy law school. Okay, so working is way better. It's way better. I mean, law school, sometimes you feel like, why am I learning this? Am I ever going to use this? Sometimes you do. And you need the foundation and you need the instruction on how to think like a lawyer, right? That critical thinking. But being a lawyer is so much more fun. And you're with other people and you're learning and you're, doing things for the first time. So the transition can be hard because you're learning how to be a lawyer, which law school does not teach you, right? But I just feel like every time I've taken on a new job, it's hard at first, right? I mean, there's a lot to learn. And as David's saying, you dive in and you learn it and you work hard. And then no one can take that from you. And you move on to the next thing. And you've got this other skill set or body of law under your belt. So the transition is not bad, but it is a transition. I think it's good. It's way better than law school. People are nicer. You feel like, at first you feel like you don't know anything, but then you start to learn. I I don't know, when I was in law school, I felt like it was really stupid, right? That they make you feel like you don't know anything. You all know so much already, right? I mean, you have whole lives and everything. Anyway, I'm rambling. But there is a transition and it's totally
I'll add something about transitions in the career. In criminal on either side, those offices have so many different divisions and they do so many different kinds of work. You're likely to start out doing misdemeanor jury trial. And it's a thrill to have an entire courtroom hanging on your every word. And witnesses only answering the questions you ask, or if they don't, get them objected to. And if you're worried about doing the right thing at the beginning, their office has training. Most offices have internal training. All of them have trainings with California Public Defenders Association, California DAs Association. So you can go and learn about those skills for that particular area. But then as you graduate from that and move into other specialty areas, there could be any number of different areas that you could be interested in. Some people gravitate toward violent crime. Others gravitate toward domestic violence crime. Others to white collar crime. Some to appellate work. Some people would rather write briefs to the Supreme Court of California and not be in a trial litigation. There's room for that in those criminal areas too. And so you'll always get new opportunities. If you start in a small office, you'll probably become more of a jack of all trades quicker. If you start in a larger office, you'll have many more niche areas to move into. And finally, when you develop enough expertise in some areas that you can begin to then teach your peers, so you can transition from relying on mentors in your office to help you to you becoming a mentor to others and pay it forward, which is what I'm trying to do now for law students. So it's an ongoing, lifelong process. It never ends. I waited till my retirement to transition into an entirely new area of the law, and I'm still enjoying it. The point is, find what you love, like everyone has said, and then keep expanding to what you love into new areas if you're capable of it and you're interested in it, because there's always more that you can pick up and there's always more you can help others to do.
If any of you feel really stupid, too, take consolation in the fact that some of us still feel really stupid all the time. Maybe most of us, I don't know, but I certainly do. I've been doing this 20 plus years. I feel like I don't know. So.
So you can do whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter where your background is, what you've done in the past. You can do whatever you want. And there's a lot of mentors out there. And I did not take advantage of mentors. I didn't really know what a mentor was. When I worked in the city, when I worked here, I became a member of Queen's Bench. And it's a Women Lawyers Association. And also the San Francisco Bar Association. There's a lot of those. And you can talk to different people about their experiences, about their backgrounds. And you can network. You can find the people who want to, give you a leg up. You can work in an office where people will rent different space and in the subject that you want to be in. So there's so many different pathways and you can do it. It doesn't never feel like you don't have your path. You will make your path.
I guess I should say something. Well, for me, I started practicing law before I had my license, but after I had gone to law school. So it was kind of a tricky thing because I was self-representing myself in my divorce, but I was dressed as a lawyer. So it was always interesting because the judge forgot that I was also the client. And I wasn't a lawyer yet. But I say that all because what it taught me was to just kind of immerse myself in the area. So at that time, I had to just acquaint myself with another family lawyer who I could then learn from, because now I have to represent myself in my own hearing. You know, I took myself as my test case to really learn family law. I put my own self through it. When it became time when I was like, oh, I think I might want to do cannabis law. Well, I went to my cannabis dealer and I was like, hey, you should get a license. And then together, the two of us figured out the whole system. 2,000 clients later, the rest is history. But it was a matter of immersing myself in the culture. I took a lot of, when my phone wasn't ringing and nobody was calling, I did a lot of MCLEs on areas of law that I wanted to learn. I learned winery law, I learned cannabis law, how to set up your business, how to do your SEO. Like, there's so many things, so many CLEs you could take to then train you. Like, you want to be in sports management, you know, I tell shoulder tap those student athletes, hey, let's go out. Let me rep you. You know, it's just really taking who you know. I used to say, I want a certain type of client. I want to have a certain kind of conversation. I don't want people calling me about this. I don't want people calling me about how I can help them find a building for their cannabis business. Or I want people calling me talking about, oh, I need you to write a release. You know, I that was something that I projected out there, like, what kind of person do you want to deal with? I don't want to go into the jail and meet you in the jail and figure out how you're going to get out. I don't want to do that. I'm not the best person, you know, but I would like to help you start your business. Let's talk about getting your business license. Do you want to incorporate? Maybe you're not really making enough. Maybe you should just stay solo, and so on. So I would say shoulder tap with people who are doing what you want to do, you know, and be like, hey. So when it was time for me to learn criminal law because my cannabis clients were bad actors, I had to go to Gerald Stallworth, you know, a lawyer. I was like, hey, you went to my college, so you got to help me. He didn't know me, but you went to my college, you got to help me. You got to teach me what to do. So he's like, okay, well, I have some cases I can't go. You can go for me. So now I'm doing appearances for him. Just threw myself into the fire, and you know, it purifies you. So that's what I would just be bold, be resolute. You know, I was an English major, so I was always Shakespeare with me. So, but yeah, really, you have to just be like, hey, I want to do what you're doing. How can I do that? You know,
I would just add, I think that's where that conversation about like the transition from law school to career comes in, because like the bar is going to require you to be competent in whatever you're doing. So it's your responsibility to do the studying, do the work. If you're going to take on a client, you better know what you're doing, because that's what you swore an oath to do, right? So you're the same way that like you will stick your nose down in a book and create a study guide so that you can pass an exam in law school. Well, that's what you're going to do when it comes to doing your sports and management and entertainment stuff, right? Like, what do I need to learn to be competent in this? And then you're just going to continue developing, so you're just better than everybody else.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like, your background might not be spreadsheets. So you might not have that to build on when you're building a firm like Joanna. But like everybody has their interests, right? And so like there's a lawyer who most of us know, James, I can't remember his last name. Yeah. So he used to do kickboxing. And so, you meet a person like that and you have this shared interest, and they'll have more of a reason to take a liking to you and to, helping you through your experience, just like they went through their experience. And maybe they'll be connected to a network of, mixed martial artists or something that you can then find your place in. And, it might not be doing the kind of law you want to do, but it's doing law. And from there, you're going
serving
to
the
grow.
community you want to serve. So yeah, it's kind of. Thank you.
Because that gives you more experience in actually trying a case, and the law school has them. I teach one. Pure crim law and crim pro are not going to do it for you except to give you a subject matter basis. And then if you're really not sure which side you want to be on, that's okay too. You can try an internship in each one and see which makes a better field for you. I mean, do you want to represent people who've been accused of a crime, or do you want to vindicate society and the victim's interest, which then involves sometimes, often, incarcerating someone? It's got to be what you feel more emotionally attuned to. But take as much of the practice related stuff as you can and go outside and do those internships and externships as much as you can to get the sense of what you really want. Because you won't get it in an original class unless somehow you have a magical professor and a great experience.
Yeah, I would say like I was just really interested in the subject matter. It was the only thing that I was like, oh, these stories are juicy. I like this. Like soap opera. I grew up watching soap operas, and that was kind of like what criminal classes were like for me. But then I really got the confirmation when I did my externships and my internships, and both of those were at a state attorney's office in Florida and the DA's office in Sacramento, and now I do defense, right? So you can do both sides and just make a longer career decision. But I think of it like dating. You know, you might try a few things and then you're like, you know what, I cannot see myself with this for the rest of my life. And then sometimes you make a decision like, oh yeah, I am gonna be with this thing for the rest of my life. And then some people change their mind, like that was not the right choice. And so it's the same thing like when you're going into your career that like you're gonna make the best choice based on where you're at in that moment, but your life is gonna change, circumstances are gonna change, and your interests will develop over time. But it's you kind of know, honestly, like when you know, you know. And sometimes you just throw that fish back in the pond. Maybe criminal, you know, don't give up on it until you've like actually had some hands-on experience, I would say, but that might not be the path. But there's other public interest things that you can do, like with legal aid or other type of work that could still hit that like social justice factor, but maybe it's not criminal advocacy.
My experience speaks to that too, because so like when I was in law school, you know, I was like 31 or 32 or something like that. And I felt like, you know, I came out of law school with this, you know, this music thing that I had always just cherished, and it became for a while this dirty little secret, right? Like you go into big firm interview and they see, wait, you're a guitar player. Like, yeah, I'm not interested. But then also you have to kind of focus in on what you're doing. And I think that the thing I would say is, you know, like Joanna was saying, you try the things and see what you like. I guess the question is whether you can try two things at once. Because if you're, you know, if you get a job doing, you know, trust and estate stuff, and you're moonlighting doing the other stuff. I mean, that's viable. Like my friend who I was talking with, Jerry, who became an immigration lawyer, she worked in a big firm that had an immigration clinic, and so she put all her time into the immigration clinic to get that experience and see if she liked it. So I guess just the tricky thing is how much you balance those two competing things while trying both of them to see what you like.
I think the hard part that we come run into is like when do we call it quits? You know, like when have I gathered enough information to say like this isn't for me? And I think sometimes you will find yourself like naturally leaning towards a thing. So like sometimes I talk to my team members and I'm like, go read your penal code. Like, don't ask me. They call me a walking encyclopedia. I'm like, because I've read my penal code. I just sit there at night and I read my penal code. Like, don't you? And most people don't. But there will be something that kind of like piques your interest. So like either it's like you're on like an RJC listserv and these emails are coming in and you're just I gotta read the new case law that came out about that, or you're like laying up in bed and like, uh, gotta make sure grandma got that estate plan updated. You know, something will like focus you in and like either keep you up at night, but not like in a bad way, right? Like it's keeping you up because you're intrigued and you want to know more. And there's this like, like, you know, just this avid sense of like, I've got to master this. And if you don't want to master the thing, then it's probably not the thing for you.
I was like asking people what they do also, and then asking people if they like what they do, and just a little bit about what the practice is like. Sometimes you can tell from that kind of thing. Like I tried estate planning. It was because we had a lawyer within our office who rented some space, and she did estate planning. And this was when I was at the real estate firm. And she needed some help one time, and I said sure. And so I met some clients, and I did some estate planning with her, and I did not like it at all, and I knew right away. So sometimes, if you just could, maybe do some shadowing or do some volunteering, sometimes it doesn't take long. If it's if you can just eliminate it.
One more thing to add too is like, if you haven't considered it, when you go out on your own, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to choose, right? If I wanted to do multiple things, I could. I just don't want to do anything else. So that's like another thing that maybe you just find yourself really invested in both. One's a passion project and one is like your bread and butter, but you like it. Do both. Are, I mean, this is coming from me as a criminal defense attorney. I tell people all the time, being a lawyer is stressful. Being a criminal lawyer is even more stressful because you're dealing with people's lives. And of course, that's, just the way I introduce things to team members who are interested. I mean, Skylar just started working with me about 2 weeks ago, and that's what I told her. But are you sure? Because think fast paced, now multiply it by 100. And that is the stress that we are working with on a daily basis, right? And I think that there are some areas of practice that have a little less like hanging in the balance, right? But doesn't make it any less stressful. Sometimes it could be billions of dollars that we're fighting over, people's illnesses and things like that. So the balance part of it really comes from like you being intentional about saying like, these are my boulders, like this is the stuff that takes up the time in my calendar and they are movable. Like, sorry, you cannot have this time. And unless you want to end up in a situation where somebody in your law school class is talking about their old boss whose everything came crashing down because they weren't prioritizing things. So I think it really just boils down to like your priorities and how you decide to block your calendar.
And I think self-care, and it sounds touchy-feely, but I mean, it's real. I mean, because there are days when you're thinking about someone who's in danger, right? But you still have to go home and live your life. So it's sort of compartmentalizing a little bit, but also taking care of yourself so that you're in a position where you can fight another day. Because it's a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. Easier said than done, too.
Oh, I'm a 35-year-old with back problems, like because of kitchen work. Like I understand the self-care aspect. Like no offense, sorry, I didn't mean to like.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but I'm just that's what I'm trying to.
I would say something about I graduated law school 25 years ago, but I can still tell you the habits that I developed while I was a law student is still with me today. The discipline that I developed, I used to work out, between classes. I treated being here all day as part of a job. At our law school, we had study girls in the library and everything. It was cultivating us to be, corporate lawyers type of thing. And I carry that discipline in me, in my body, in my muscle memory. And I really believe you need to cultivate these healthy lifestyle while you're still a student. Because once you go out into the world, it's going to eat you up, and nobody's going to want to hear any of your excuses ever again. So while you're here, you need to treat this like a business, like a job. You need to come dressed and prepared, and you need to take care of yourself and not be eating this junk food in here, making sure you're drinking water and you're going to the gym and you have these healthy routines that become automatic while you're still in school. Because you're not going to be the priority anymore when you get out there. You're going to be a power tool, right? So you have to take care of yourself. And you have to do that when you're still in school. This is the environment where you have all this support here, training you to be a professional. Everything you're doing here, how you're coping, studying late, eating junk, that's how you're gonna do the job. And it's gonna kill you. And that's just the main thing I would say about the bar associations. They can be helpful, but they can be detrimental. They cultivate a lot of bad habits. There's a lot of alcoholism and drug abuse out there. And no one calls out anybody on it, ever, because we're all adults. I'm telling you now because you're students, and I'm on this panel. You gotta cultivate a healthy relationship with your body, first and foremost, because this is the vessel, right, that carries the soul. And if our body is garbage, our mind is junk and useless.
I have a counterpoint, which is actually I'm like loving it being right here between these two because I am not currently taking care of myself. I am not going to the gym like I want to because I hired one person 6 months ago. She's awesome. But before that it was just me and I was doing everything and I'm still doing almost everything. And so when I have, as I did a couple of weeks ago, two cross motions for summary judgment to deal with, there's just not time. But I'm okay with that right now because, every time she says like, oh, I've had my practice for 11 years or something, I just can't wait until I say, I've had my practice for 11 years and I've been able to build it out to get the help that I need to have the people wear these different hats. So it's like, yeah, in ways my life is awesome right now, but in ways it completely sucks. And it's a path towards getting to a different place. So I totally agree with what Paul is saying that you have to take care of yourself, but sometimes there's an ebb and flow and you just kind of have to see the bigger picture while suffering. But that's law school, right? You're used to it. 3 years.
Here's a tidbit for you. One of your questions stressed is what we're learning here is all going to help us. And it occurs to me that one of the biggest problems I've ever had with law school from the time I was in law school to even now being associated with a law school is the instruction practical enough? So much of it is theoretical, and law school professors, the full-time full professor and assistant professor faculty, the typical path is they excelled in law school, they did a clerkship, and then they come right back and they're teaching in law school. So they haven't had an awful lot of practical experience. Some of them have, but not a lot. The adjunct professors that you can learn from are quite the opposite. They've been mostly out in practice. So try and get some teaching from adjunct professors who can give you the practical, real world experience, not an esoteric rule of evidence, but how that really works in a real life case situation and multiple real life case situations. Because then it comes alive to you and you can actually see its application when you get into the real world. Now that's what you remember. Not so much the rule against perpetuities, but how that professor's real life lecture application applies in your next case. Give one tip that I tell my externship students: don't think of an interview as you're one down and they're the all powerful and you answer their questions as best you can. You should ask some questions too. Ask them about the culture of their firm or their practice area. Ask them what particular things they're looking for, what skill sets work the best with them. The more you ask questions, the more they see you're a person who can engage with them and you're curious and interested. And that's a lot better than just sitting there passively and answering whatever they ask and then at the end saying, do you have any other questions for me?
And I would add doing your research. So don't ask questions that are answerable by looking at their website, right? Because that has happened and I'm like, they did nothing. You know what I mean? I interviewed someone recently and when he walked in the room, he said, "Hi Maria, hi John, hi Kevin." He had looked us all up. Our pictures are on the website. And I was like, okay, a little creepy, but so I think it is important to do your research and know as much as you can about the firm or the organization and what the office.
100%. I've seen it both ways. One of the things that is actually, I had a judicial candidate, so we've interviewed judicial candidates for a really long time in Alameda County, and there's a judicial candidate who did that to me one time, and I was like, ah, like that. That is impressive. I've yet to see a team member candidate do that, but one of the things that I look for is for people who really taken the time to become competent in the job that they want. So, here's the thing. I didn't do this to you, right? You went on Google's, you found my website, you submitted your resume and your cover letter, you did the written application, you did the phone screen, you showed up to the interview. So now show me all of that tenacity in this interview. Show up as your best self. And part of that should have been like, as you were scrolling on the interwebs, then you should have looked up my firm and looked me up and gotten a feel for the culture yourself. But yes, ask me about the culture because I will talk to you about it. Once you get to the meet and greet with me, which is like probably the fourth stage in the interview process, you're almost hired. But if you don't show up with the energy that all the other team members have seen in you, and you don't have like an interest that's kind of exuding off of you in the role, I'm probably not going to pass you through. So that's one thing from that end. And then as for me, when I'm interviewing, I like to ask people about like their interpretation of words. So it really is like, what does fast paced mean to you? And one of my favorite things is like, tell me your personal brand in 3 words. Nothing else. Please do not explain. Please don't tell me what integrity means, or don't explain anything. Just say stable, tenacious, and motivated. That's it. And let me assume what it means. But it kind of communicates some things when you thought about who you are as a person and the 3 adjectives that really describe you. That's how you should show up in life. That's how you should dress. That's how you should talk. No matter whether it's in the classroom or in an interview, you should be exuding that personal brand in everything that you do. So take the time. That's your homework today. Take the time. Think about your 3 words that describe you and how you want to show up. Whether you're submitting a motion to the court, let me tell you, every substantive motion in my office has to go through me before it gets submitted to the court, because you guys are not going to make me look crazy. I'm polished. That's one of my words. So it better be a polished motion because it's got my name on it. And so even your work product, how you show up for the courts, should represent your personal brand.
To dovetail off that, I think the way I like to think about it is that you're establishing your credibility as soon as you step into that interview room, or as soon as you step into whatever kind of interaction you're going to have. And it's so important to be able to show your credibility, your integrity, show that you care, and that's why dressing, the way you speak, being professional, and also somehow at the same time showing us who you are. I've done a lot of practice interviewing for law students, volunteering to be an interviewer, and I can see the people who are prepared. That shows credibility, integrity. The people who have the best questions, that shows preparedness, that shows a lot of things about you. And then the people who I can tell, like, they're giving me their genuine self. Like, they're not pretending here. I can tell that this is who they are. That's important. I know sometimes it's hard to do because you're nervous, but that's important. One thing I wanted to convey to you that's happened in our office recently, and I'm not sure why, I don't think any of you would do this, but so just to keep in mind, we've had some interns come in, 1Ls, 2Ls, 3Ls, and a woman came in sweats. Somebody came in on their first day with like super familiar, just, you know, talking to us like they would talk to their friend. And it's we weren't sure what was going on, but it's happened from so many people that I think talking about the transition, like making sure you transition from like I'm in law school now, and then I'm in a professional environment, and I need to show people that I understand what that is. So, yeah.
And there are some places that will let you come to work and sweat. It's not my office. But there are some places. And then to close, one last thing was David mentioned that people weren't interested in his guitar stuff on his resume. I like that. I actually want to know what you did besides your internship, because everybody did an internship. But how do you did you work to get where you are, and did you bartend after law school? Because that speaks volumes to me about your work ethic and how you understand like the need to hustle. Because in my office, we need to hustle. So there are some firms who will appreciate the authentic side of you and not just what you learned in school.
We're gonna have to.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Don't forget to like and share this video, and for more legal insights, keep watching and subscribe to our channel.